So it's 2:50 a.m. and I'm just gonna remake a tutorial I made before. It's basically how to do a handstand and not suck at it. This focuses more on teaching you how you should learn handstands rather than should not. You can't really teach handstands as much, but it's more of just learning how to do it correctly and then just building up on it, because it requires strength and balance. And strength you obviously build. Sorry, I'm sick. Strength you obviously build upon to get better. Same thing with balance. Actually, a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, "Oh, I have bad balance," but you just get better at balance by practicing balancing, just like a skill. Okay. So the first thing to cover is the way you commonly learn to handstand or try to handstand when you were a little kid or something, is to kick into it. Now, for an experienced person at hand balancing, it's an alright way to go into it, because you can simply just... But if you noticed, as soon as I went into that, I kind of went like this a little bit and then that. That's because I didn't kick up high enough. And that's the problem with these kinds of handstands, is because you can either not kick up too much, and since you don't have the strength or balance yet, what'll happen is you'll go and you'll think you're vertical, but you're somewhere around here ish. Who knows? And what can also happen is I really apologize. What can also happen is you kick a little too much and you go forward into like a makeshift noobish front handspring. You know what I'm talking about, the ones where you like this, and then once you go over it, you don't know what you're doing and you just flop on your back or something. Except with this, since you're trying to handstand, you literally do just flop on your back. Or if you're slightly more experienced, you'll roll forward. Gotta fix my camera. Yeah. Alright, fine. Whatever. Okay. So, what you want to do if you insist on practicing that, or actually just in fact in general and practice handstands, what I just did to then go into a forward roll out of the handstand is simply when you sense that your body is going to go forward, rather than just kind of tense up and just prepare for impact, what you want to do is it's really hard to explain, but if you know how to do a forward roll on the ground or a roll kip up, this is the exact same technique. It's first and foremost, you tuck your head in, like you pull your chin in, and what that does is it rounds your back from your shoulders, and you want to basically bring the ground behind you to your shoulders. You don't want to bring it to your head area, because then you'll end up flopping rather than rolling. If you bring it here, you roll over into it. Okay, onto the actual handstand, we can, Okay, so let me just pull this camera so you get a good angle of the ground. Alright, now, progression into a handstand. I realized from my friend Dima that the best way to get strength for a handstand is obviously to practice handstands, but I told you not to kick up into it, so which way is there to go to a handstand? Just like how round-offs are like the setup for like tumbling and whatnot, there's a setup for handstands. They're presses, usually out of some sort of planche. What is planche, you ask? It is a horizontal handstand, which you don't really have to worry about because they're extremely hard. Okay, so tuck planche is the only kind of planche you really need to learn at this point, and basically you don't really even need to learn that unless you want to practice to get more muscle, because it does build the same muscles, your shoulders, your triceps, and a little bit in your biceps. You can do push-ups in it, you can hold it, whatever. you can hold it for 30 seconds, that's usually good enough to get yourself, to be able to get yourself in a handstand hold. Okay, so obviously with hand balancing, you use your hands to balance, and if you go too much forward, you want to push with your fingertips and push back a little bit. And if you go too much backwards, you want to push with the base of your hand to then move the ground forwards and get yourself more forward. Now, just preferably you want to get yourself in that sweet spot situated in between the forwards and the backwards, which you can balance on your entire hand. Now, back on the tuck planche. The tuck planche is simply being in a ball only on your hands. Now, the way to get into it is to just sit how I am. You crouch, and your arms are shoulder width apart. Put them on the ground basically in front of you, and when you do that, you see how I lean forward. And then all you do is you bend your arms the slightest bit to start getting yourself a little over yourself, everything kind of locks up. Because you bend forward and stiffen, and then with that you push with the base of your hand to get your feet up a little bit. What that looks like is this. And this is tuck planche. And there's a prerequisite to that if you feel like you should learn it, which is called the frog stand, I believe. Which is basically same thing, but now your arms are on the inside, so you can support your legs on your arms, and you just kind of look asinine doing it. So but tuck planche is a little bit better for that. And then the way to go from a tuck planche into a handstand is to rely more on the base of your hand. You want to focus on not just bringing your head forward, because then that'll get you too much forwards. You want to take your head from this position and pull it back and down and up. So that way, instead of having your body all like this, you kind of just get yourself underneath yourself. And with your legs, once they reach this position here, where they're about to go up into a vertical, you want to extend them then, so that way the tuck gets them easier up, because if your legs are flat, it's more mass to pull up. And then if you have them tucked above you, you can do that where it's like scorpion, but if you extend them, it's just it's like a more even balance point. So I'm going to demonstrate a tuck planche into a handstand. I'm going to hold the tuck planche for emphasis, but keep in mind you don't even need to really do much more than just lean into it. So here it is. And once you learn a handstand and hold it for a few seconds, I guess. I mean literal seconds. Not like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you can hold it for a few seconds. What I did was I played around with it. I didn't leave it just a handstand. I was like, okay, let me find a safe and controlled area where I won't bust my face and get very injured. And let me try and walk around on grass or something. Let me try to go uphill. Let me try to go downhill. Let me try and walk sideways. Let me try and walk down a step. Just one step. I just played around with it a lot. Looked up ways that people kind of do things with their handstands and stuff. I also learned, it's called elbow stands, but it's forearm, And that's just basically, it's the same thing, but you just do this. Okay, so that's basically how you should go about learning to handstand the correct way, and this really does help build the muscles needed for the handstands, because you're doing handstands and because you're doing other hand balancing techniques, which obviously train the same things. I've repeated myself a few times already, so you should have that in mind by now. Have it in mind. So yes, tuck planches, handstands, tuck planche press into handstand, and then once you can get handstands, you play around with them, and that's just kind of the way to get better. Cause like you can ask any one of my friends, even though you probably don't know any of them. Basically, what I did was I just literally played around, and I'm like, yeah, dude, let's handstand battle. We'll like have contests to so you can hold it longer, or like fight each other, walk the furthest and stuff. Also, a thing to keep in mind is if you walk on your handstand, it's a lot easier to hold your balance because you can kind of re-sturdy yourself with every step. And if you're like this, it's easier to hold yourself up than this because like you're a little more apart. You get that whole leverage room rather than like this. So if you really want to train your muscles, try and hold straight handstands and not move. But if you start falling, obviously take a step or roll or whatever you need to do, because that's the best way to get like the muscles like really good. Also, if you've been training handstands for a while and you're really sore or something, like next day and you want to do handstands, like it's not a bad thing to not do handstands because you can just do them the next day or something, and you're not going to lose them because you're the man and you know how to do handstands. So yes, this is the way to learn handstands and stuff. Yeah. Tutorial.